What's good, everybody? Happy Wu-Tang Wednesday. We're doing our new comic book day indie reviews every Wednesday here on the 6th Element of Hip Hop. So let's break it down, man. Let's get into it. We've got a whole bunch of dope indie comics we want to talk about today, and let's jump right into it. We got number one we're going to talk about is The Cult of Dracula. This is sick. Written by Rich Davis, art by Henry Martinez, cover by Gyula Namath. The synopsis is, Special Agent Malcolm Brahm arrives at the House of the Rising Sun. This secluded compound is the home of the secretive Ordo Dracula and the scene of a mass horrendous crime coined the Cult of Dracula mass suicides. Mina Murray leads a documentary film crew to uncover the secrets of the mysterious cult by interviewing its enigmatic leader, Robert Renfield. Neither investigator is prepared for the gravity of the truths they will uncover. 28 pages, full color, cover price $3.99. The author has a quote. He says, "It's witchy, it's weird, it's helter-skelter within a hippie cult dedicated to an ancient blood goddess. You know Bram Stoker's genre-defining classic by heart, but you have no idea where this story is going. As a child, two things absolutely terrified me, Count Dracula and Charles Manson. With Cult of Dracula, I follow Stephen King's advice to write what scares you by bringing these two nightmares together." That's Rich Davis, the author of Cult of Dracula. Cult of Dracula, the comic, is an adaptation of the stage play by Rich Davis. And it starts out like a real-world true crime detective story. You got Special Agent Malcolm Brahm is investigating a graphically bloody murder scene, or as the media calls it, the Cult of Dracula mass suicides. The detective aspect is used to keep the reader grounded in reality, as the story kind of takes us on a, deep rabbit hole to learn that this weird little cult is so much older and darker than anyone can imagine. It is loosely based on Stoker's novel, but I say loosely based because so far it's not much more than the characters' names and aspects of their relationships that are directly from the novel itself. I thought this comic was hella dope. A darkly tragic story with a bloody grindhouse vibe to it, but it also has a slow building sense of impending doom that raises it above the typical shallow horror comic, which I love. And you can really feel the pain of each character and the sense of utter loss and emptiness that they carry. The cult aspect of the story isn't just some excuse to show vampire demons eating people. It's the inevitable end of each character's journey. It's deep. And we start off with Mina Murray interviewing Renfield, the cult leader. Interrogating the loony bastard is frustrating as hell because he's constantly evading her questions like, are its members prisoners? Are the cult members brainwashed? Why is Renfield considered their leader? Toward the end of the interview, Renfield starts to babble incoherently and he bugs out, and then he sees the brides of Dracula singing to him, and you can't really be sure if they're actually there and Renfield is the only one who can see them, or if it's all in his crazy ass mind. And then we cut to detective questioning members of the clergy who knew Abraham Van Helsing before he was removed from the priesthood. And the priest says Van Helsing was very curious and sought all the knowledge and answers, which was good in some ways, but the priesthood didn't agree with the dark pathways he took to get to the truth. Van Helsing wasn't willing to accept God, sometimes hid the truth for our own protection, is what the priest tells him, which I believe is that bullish religion uses to keep its followers in line and or avoid the fact that they really can't explain shit. But that's just me. Flashback before the massacre. Mina and the crew are shown to their rooms for the night. Of course, they're told not to go outside, after dark for their own protection. And then Mina, she peeps out the curtains and we see a glimpse of a werewolf-looking type thing running through the trees, which I would have been out of there right then, but it's a comic, a horror comic. Cut to inside the main house. The character named after Lucy from the OG novel is heading into the sanctuary holding a baby. And we see this story's Arthur waiting in the hallway with his suitcase packed. He's ready to bug out. He begs her to come with him, but Lucy says she won't ever leave, that she belongs here. She feels accepted here, and if he wants to go, he'll have to go without her. And what makes this scene so powerful is its reflection of the romance between Lucy and Arthur from the OG Dracula novel. Of course, the setting and the context are completely different, but it captures the spirit of Arthur's deep love for Lucy and his desperate need to save her from the darkness he's powerless to stop. We go back to Mina waking up from a nightmare about the 3 brides leading men in chains as sacrifices to their master, a winged demon sitting on a throne. Outside, Lucy walks up to the front doors of the church holding the same baby from earlier. She meets Renfield outside and explains that the baby belongs to another female member of the cult, and Lucy stole it to bring here as her first sacrifice. Renfield's like, hell yeah, girl, good job, taking your last step on the journey. He tells her, it's time, and Lucy walks in the church. Renfield gives the baby to the 3 brides and their demon master, who proceed to tear it apart like a rotisserie chicken or something. And we conclude the issue with Lucy taking the next step in her journey with the cult, and it's terrifying. It's really, really great. Final thoughts. Cult of Dracula #2, available from Source Point Press, is a careening freight train of damaged people with troubled lives heading for their proverbial cliff. The story is as heartbreaking as it is monstrous, and the art doesn't shy away from displaying every gory detail. So we're going to give this a rating of hella dope. And just to kind of sum up how the rating system works, all right, we've got dope, which is just a dope comic. It's good, check it out. Hella dope, which means this is above average, man. This is a great comic. I highly recommend it. The highest honor is super dope. Now, if I give it a super dope, go buy this book, all right, because this is like one of my favorites. And below dope, we have whack. So if I say it's whack, just, forget about it. Our next book, John Carpenter's Tales of Science Fiction Hell, issue #2. The series was inspired by a story from John Carpenter and Sandy King. It was written by David J. Shao, illustrated and inked by Andrea Sparza, features colors by Sergio Martinez, letters by Janice Chang, and cover art by Tim Bradstreet. This is a well-written comic. The story is shaping up to be very interesting and scary. The characters are developing nicely, and the dialogue is witty and cool. I love the art in this one, very realistic and beautifully colored and drawn, but with a surreal aspect that keeps it in the realm of sci-fi horror. The character designs are unique, the facial expressions are spot on, very narrative to the scenes. The scenery itself is great, very cinematic but simple. The focus stays on the target of whatever the story needs you to see at the moment. The depiction of the gateway to hell is a massive ship in the dark night sea of the Bermuda Triangle, and it definitely gives off a spooky vibe, and you can really imagine being there and seeing it in real life and just how terrifying it would be. This huge, massive thing out in the middle of the dark black night. The occult imagery is not cheesy or corny, it's just right and gives the feeling that this could be real life. The story itself is very entertaining. We open up with a man scrambling to escape what looks to be a hole in the earth in Medellin, Colombia, and he's carrying some sort of mineral. Almost reminds me of a huge chunk of mother of pearl or opal, I think it is. We learn that the mineral is actually a piece of the inner caverns of hell itself. We cut to a shield-like organization, 2 agents witnessing a public execution of a convicted murderer, after which we see that it was all an illusion just to fool the state and the media into believing the inmate was actually executed, so that this clandestine agency can whisk him away and use him as a guide into hell, because apparently he's been there also. Next, we see a couple of detectives in a New York City subway investigating what appears to be a large beast or creature resembling a living gargoyle wearing clothes. The train had crushed it to pieces, but it had a companion who survived. One of our main characters named Kartkas, Kartkas. I think it's supposed to sound like carcass, but it's Kartkas. Kartkas, who is also a gargoyle-looking reptilian man wearing a hoodie and sweatpants. We then meet a gun nut soldier, shout out to Kareem, shooter on deck, what's up homie, salute smoke, and an occult expert, aka a young redhead woman and a witch, who both fly off in the organization's futuristic helicopters to that massive old ship in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, where all the characters meet up and plan their descent into hell. The ship leads to an underwater tunnel that they need to go through to get there. Issue 2, which dropped today, is a flashback of when and how our friend Kartkas was found, arrested, and escaped from jail, to be found again by the international conglomerate who is funding the hell expedition to be used as their guide. When we finally get back to the storyline from issue 1, back on the giant ship in the Bermuda Triangle, a submarine pulls up and the soldier guy draws down and the boss lady tells him kill anything that comes out of the sub, and the scene cuts. I can't wait to see where this story goes from here. I highly recommend this, and I give it a hella dope rating. Our next book, Dept of Truth. Now, I know Image is by no means an indie publisher, but the reason I'm doing the indie reviews is to bring awareness to comics that aren't just about superheroes. Image is publishing a comic like this called The Dept of Truth that has nothing to do with superheroes, and it's just the type of comic I'm talking about. Shout out to my G, Mick Takala, from the Full Blast tribe that I'm always saluting. This is a comic I highly recommend for you, bruh. It's all about conspiracy theories and clandestine government agencies, and if you're into that kind of thing like Mick and so many of millions of Americans, then you will love Dept of Truth. It's a comic about a secret government agency of the same name that investigates, perpetuates, and deals with large national and global conspiracies, both real and imagined. Issue number 9 drops today, and I want to read you an excerpt from it. I think it sums up the comic as a whole in many ways. In this scene, an old spy who specialized in occult magic, the real kind, not the Harry Potter stuff, explains to an agent of the Dept of Truth exactly how real magic, symbolism that changes the world through people's minds, works and has gotten us to where we are now. So he says, the early magicians, to my thinking, must have been people who knew the symbols and stories of the societies next door. Ones who understood that the pharaohs got different gods from the Greeks, and they got different gods from the wild men in the north with the pointy horned hats. The folks who might come and say your neighbors have better gods than yours, and their rituals are more fun and their temples are better. Or even worse, they might get you thinking about how strange it is that you both have gods for the sun even though there's only one sun. Maybe that means the symbol is more powerful than God. The magicians are the ones that kept that secret knowledge, that occult knowledge, the understanding that symbols run the show. Now let's fast forward a bit, because society works like that for most of history. But then the world starts getting a little bit more connected. Christianity folds in a whole shit ton of pagan ideas, so the little people don't have to start changing their symbols for a weird religion from the East. But they also start burning people alive if anyone keeps spreading the old pagan beliefs, and they start building a new figure out of pagan lore from scraps of previously disconnected scripture. Suddenly the biblical Satan becomes the horned, cloven-hoofed devil, and they use that symbol to make the little people fear all the pagan symbols that got wrapped up into him. So the masses only believe what the church tell them is or isn't true. But in the merchant class, there are still people who traveled the world and saw evidence of the great old religions and their symbols. And they started forming little social clubs where they'd put on silly costumes and perform silly little rituals based on their misunderstanding of old Egyptian and pagan rites. Something a little naughty, a fun secret to share with pals dressed up with pagan symbols. The Freemasons. Bingo. But now, this is when things start to get weird and enter our side of things. People out there, they start getting wind of these secret societies of the elite, these social clubs with their fun little rituals. These rich folk, they're playing games with the images that the priests are telling the little people are the most evil symbols in the world. The common people start to worry that the wealthy and the powerful are worshippers of Satan, which sparks a whole new kind of curiosity, because now these social clubs aren't just social clubs, they're taboo. Not just to the common folk, but to the aristocracy, who all start to believe that there are people out there who actually might know and perform some kind of real magic. Consider the woman Madame Blavatsky. She formed a theoretical society to spread these beliefs, a blend of Western esoteric knowledge, spiritualism, and wild misappropriation of Eastern religious concepts that she fed eagerly to her hungry, wealthy audience. And in London, you see the founding of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, another group claiming to be in a metaphysical communication with what they called the Secret Chiefs. Now, and this is important here, at this point we're talking about a bunch of smart fucking nerds reading about obscure religious beliefs and imagining stuff together. These were the nerdiest Freemasons who wanted to spend all their time talking about magic symbols and form their own club in the British high society. She claims to have traveled to Tibet, closed to the world in the mid-19th century, and have learned from hidden masters who would guide her to bring this message to the world, that all religions are descended from a pantheist religion, and that Christianity had hindered our connection to our true human potential. Then there comes a young man named Aleister Crowley. He wants to join the order and pals up with one of its founders, but he wants to get into the heavy stuff right away. He wants to play with the real magic and push the limits to see what all it can do. This ruffles the feathers of the old nerds and they throw him out, so he goes off into the world to learn what he can on his own. Like raising the dead in Frankenstein or attracting the attention of forgotten ancient monster from the east of Dracula, we're not far from H.P. Lovecraft dreaming up a whole universe of stories about amoral scientists in universities tapping into the ancient cosmic horrors we dare not look at. But the world is smaller than it's ever been. Stories spread from one side of the world to the other like never before. These occultists become curiosities. Museums in New York and London start to fill with artifacts from ancient Egypt and the Orient. Photographs bring images of impossible other worlds across the globe, and more people know how to read. Then they go back and he says, now let's get a little context for you here. The lens of the world where collective belief shapes reality. There haven't been enough people to tip the scales of belief and reshape the world with what Crowley and these other folks consider to be magic. The spreading belief is that there is some connection between the powerful and the occult, and that there are secret dark forces influencing the rulers of the world, and that scares the shit out of people. We're also seeing the dawn of science fiction and horror writing in the wild, which all seems to uniformly be afraid of messing around with the occult knowledge. Goes on from there, and it's just I don't know, man. I just think it's dope. I just think it's really cool how they break down, all the conspiracies and the way that they developed in the world, and kind of, how they came to be, what they really are about, what they mean. And it's just dope, man. It's just dope. If you're into that kind of thing, man, Dept of Truth is that joint. This book is a great idea. I'm digging it heavily so far. It's funny as hell. Has a lot of truth hidden in the stories, and conspiracy theorists or not, I know you're going to love it. Go check it out as soon as possible. Rating on this is super dope. That's our highest rating. All right, so our next book, Something is Killing the Children. I've been talking about this. I recently started collecting the back issues, and since it's only up to number 16, I should be able to get them all soon enough. Even though the first issue is already worth over $1,000 for the first printing. I have the 8th printing of the first issue already myself. Just so, let me explain how that works. When a comic comes out and every issue of the first batch they printed up is sold fast enough, they put out a second printing, then a third printing and a fourth printing, and so on. Every once in a while, a comic is so popular, it has several printings. And this one is already on its 8th printing of just that first issue, which means tens of thousands of people are still buying the first issue. Now today's review is on issue number 16. To bring you up to speed, I'm going to review the first volume or first few issues so you know what the story's about. Now, in a lot of genre of fiction, especially horror, there's an unspoken rule that no matter what horrible things happen within the story, the kids will be fine. The kids are there to kind of raise the stakes and give the protagonist someone to protect, but there's rarely a doubt that they'll survive the story. Boom Studios' Something is Killing the Children is throwing that idea out the window, as you can guess from the title. With the first volume, the writers make it clear that nobody in the small town of Archer's Peak is safe, least of all the children. They're taken by something that the adults can't physically see. You could compare this to Stranger Things in some ways, but Something is Killing the Children is a lot more mature than the Netflix hit, and smarter too. Something is Killing the Children is a slow burn so far, which is how I like it. The time spent laying the groundwork for dread to creep in is crucial, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness with which the creators build the world and its characters. It's not just about fear, it's about how hopeless and alienated a community, especially its young people, can feel in the face of a tragedy. It definitely picks up towards the end, the first few issues, and we start to learn more about the mysterious stranger in town named Erica Slaughter, which that name makes her seem like a super badass monster-slaying hero, which is partially true, but remember, Something is Killing the Children is not remotely a superhero comic, and Erica is not a superhero. She may be Archer Peak's best hope against whatever is causing the kids to disappear, but we're never led to believe she can keep everyone or anyone safe. Erica's origins and motivations are explored in issue 16, so now on to issue 16. That's the one we're reviewing for today. That's the one that just came out today. Something is Killing the Children number 16. takes readers back to the beginnings of one of the most badass female characters ever created, Erica Slaughter. It seemed with the ending of the last issue that the series had come to a final conclusion. As it turns out, though, James Tynion IV wasn't finished yet, which I'm super glad for because this comic is dope. Part of what made Something Is Killing the Children's first few arcs great was how little we knew about the main character and the organization that she belonged to. While Tynion gave us snippets of her origins, the story never slowed down to explain her past. I think waiting until now to give her backstory was brilliant. We also learn about the House of Slaughter, an organization that is almost as brutal to its own members as it is to the outside world. While hunting monsters presents its own set of challenges, it seems like Erica's toughest battles will be inside her new home. Tynion, as always, does a remarkable job at character building. With issue number 16, he makes it clear that Erica ain't nothing to funk with. Watching her evolve from a 12-year-old who just witnessed her parents' murder by a monster into the dope warrior monster hunter is gonna be dope. The artwork in this book tells the story as well as the words do. Deledra's art conveys pure fear and suspense without any action actually happening at the moment. And the characters' facial expressions, which is always a big one for me, in this comic, they have it down cold. You can really feel the terror that they feel. Overall, Something Is Killing the Children continues to be a phenomenal book. Taking us back through Erica's journey of becoming the raw slayer of beasts is looking like a super dope adventure. And of course, the rating on this one is going to be a super dope for sure. Go pick this book up. I'm telling y'all. So that's our new comic book day indie review. We covered 4 comics: Cult of Dracula, Dept of Truth, John Carpenter's Tales of Science Fiction Hell, and Something Is Killing the Children. All great books. We got 2 hella dopes and 2 super dopes, so very recommended. Go check these out. So of course, as always, shout out to the tribe, salute to the fam, shout out Stu Dog, big homie #1. Shout out to my man Cooks24, my man Spadeonomics Comics, and of course, I could not have done this without my man Al Mega from Comic Crusaders. Yo, big shout out Comic Crusaders. Go check them out on YouTube. Check out the website. He got the app. My man on Twitter, my man on Facebook, everywhere. Comic Crusaders, Al Mega, big salute. Thank you for the support, homie. Could not have done this without you. Word is bond. Salute. And I want to give a special shout out right now to a new family of mine, the Madmen of Comics, Chronic Schizo, Clayface 90, and Dad Daughter Comics, all on Instagram. You can find them there. We do comic auctions. We, dollar bids, key issues, dope comics. Every other weekend or so, we get on Instagram, go live, and just sell books to y'all. So definitely check them out on Instagram, and please leave a comment on this video. Let me know what you thought of the comics. Let me know what you thought of the video, what you thought of me, what you think of the channel, anything at all. Just leave a comment. Hit the like button, subscribe, make sure you click the notification bell and select all, and share the video, man. One love, peace everybody. Reno Noir, 6th Element of Hip Hop, signing off. Peace.